Welcome, brave souls, to a realm where shadows whisper secrets too vile for the light. I'm here to unravel tales so chilling that your skin will crawl long after the silence falls. Help me reach my first 1,000 subscribers, hit that button now, and together, let's unearth the horrors awaiting us tonight. Moving to Ravensgrove felt like stepping into a new chapter of my life. Fresh out of college, I, Claire, a Russian immigrant, was eager to dive into my summer internship. The small town outside Chicago buzzed with a quaint charm that was both welcoming and mysterious. It wasn't long before I met Drew, a local mechanic with a warm smile. We hit it off quickly, sharing stories over coffee at the town's only diner. One rainy weekend, he suggested we go hiking in the nearby Ashwood Pines. The idea sparked a wave of nostalgia in me. The woods reminded me of the forests I roamed as a child back home. Without hesitation, I agreed. As we ventured into the forest, the rain started to turn an eerie red. It was unsettling, but nothing compared to what we found next. Hanging from the trees were strange stick figures, looking like ancient tribal symbols. The deeper we went, the more these figures seemed to watch us. And then, we heard cries distant at first, but they grew eerily closer with each step. The atmosphere in Ashwood Pines shifted. It was as if the forest itself was alive, whispering secrets we weren't meant to hear. Drew and I exchanged glances, a mix of excitement and fear brewing between us. What were these signs trying to tell us? That day in the woods, I felt the thrill of the unknown, but also a creeping dread that something was watching, waiting in the summer darkness of Ravensgrove. As Drew and I ventured deeper into Ashwood Pines, the cries that had been haunting us from afar suddenly surged right beside us. It was chilling, like the forest itself was mourning. We couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and it wasn't long before we turned back, the eerie atmosphere pushing us to hurry. The forest seemed to twist and morph around us. Trees that were once welcoming now loomed ominously, and the path we thought we knew began to warp and shift. Panic set in. Drew and I were running, desperate to escape whatever was lurking in those woods. Back in Ravensgrove, the mystery of Ashwood Pines clung to us like the damp air after a storm. We were too curious to let it go. What secrets did those woods hold? Driven by this need to know, we dove into researching the forest's past. What we uncovered was dark and unsettling. Ashwood Pines was once the site of a cult in the 1800s, a group that twisted native burial rituals into something sinister, practicing human sacrifices. The thought sent shivers down my spine. Our investigation led us to a faded diary entry from 1872 posted online. It spoke of a weeping spirit that used the cries of children to lure the living into the woods. Reading those words, the cries we heard made a haunting sense. Was it this spirit we encountered? The mystery of Ashwood Pines deepened, and with it, our resolve to uncover the truth behind its summer darkness. The days following our discovery were a blur for Drew. He couldn't shake the obsession with Ashwood Pines. It consumed him. He had convinced both me and my thrill-seeking cousin Max to return to the woods. Despite my protests, the pull of the unknown was too strong to resist. We're at the entrance to Ashwood Pines as night fell. We stepped into the forest at 11 p.m. Almost immediately, a strange fog rolled in, enveloping us in its murky embrace. Our flashlights, our only source of light, began to flicker as if they were about to give out. In the dimness, as we navigated through the fog, our lights caught something eerie. Under a collapsed bridge, covered in moss, an old wooden sign bore the chilling words, "We never leave." It was a message none of us had seen before, and it sent a shiver down my spine. What did it mean? Were we truly never going to leave this place? The mystery of Ashwood Pines deepened with every step we took, and the sense of being watched grew stronger. But we were in too deep now, driven by Drew's obsession and our own curiosity. What secrets would the night reveal in the heart of the pines? As we ventured deeper into Ashwood Pines, the fog grew thicker. We reached a misty ravine beyond a bridge, and that's when the feeling hit us. We weren't alone. Footsteps echoed all around us, but when we looked, there was no one there. It was unnerving, like being in a ghost story. Max, always the bold one, took the lead. He stopped suddenly, his senses on high alert, and warned us not to look back. As he stood still, the footsteps ceased. The moment he moved forward to cross the bridge, they started up again, following his every step. It was too much. The sense of being watched, the unseen presence, it was overwhelming. In the midst of this, I couldn't help myself. I glanced back, and what I saw chilled me to the bone. High up, in the tall trees, glowing eyes stared down at us. They were unnatural, otherworldly, and they seemed to follow our every move. We were being hunted by something we couldn't see, something that lurked just beyond the veil of the fog. The mystery of Ashwood Pines was no longer just a curiosity. It had become a terrifying reality. We needed to get out, to escape whatever was watching us from the shadows of the pines. The feeling of being watched, the glowing eyes, it all pushed us to move quickly. As we finally emerged onto the deserted road outside the woods, relief washed over us. But that relief was short-lived. There, standing in the middle of the road, was a pale, barefoot young girl. Her tattered dress clung to her thin frame, and she swayed slightly, almost as if her joints weren't properly connected. It was an eerie sight, but our urgency to leave overrode our hesitation when she offered us, "She will lead the way." She sat in the back seat, hoping she could help us get away from the forest's grip. As we drove, she started speaking in mysterious, cryptic phrases that sent chills down my spine. Her words were like riddles, hinting at secrets we couldn't grasp. What really unsettled me was when she began to hum a tune. It was hauntingly familiar, and it took me a moment to realize where I'd heard it before. It was the same lullaby mentioned in the faded diary entry from 1872 that I'd read during our research, an old lullaby used in religious ceremonies. The connection to the forest's dark past was undeniable. The girl's presence, her cryptic words, and that haunting melody, it all felt like a warning, a reminder that whatever we'd encountered in Ashwood Pines was far from over. As we drove away from the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still being watched, still connected to the mysteries of the pines. The girl in the back seat wanted us to drive her home, and we agreed, hoping she'd lead us away from the unsettling events of the night. She directed us through a rundown neighborhood near an abandoned church, finally pointing us toward what looked like an empty dead end. As we turned around to leave, I glanced back to check on her, only to find the back seat empty. She was gone, vanished without a trace. The seat where she sat was cold as ice, sending a shiver down my spine. We stopped the car, puzzled and alarmed. That's when Max found something under the seat, a photo. It was an old 19th century family portrait, and there she was, the pale girl from the road, standing among the family members. The sight of her in the photo was chilling enough, but what really caught my eye was the house in the background. It was the very same house we had just passed, boarded up and clearly abandoned for decades. The connection was too eerie to ignore. The girl, the photo, the abandoned house. It all tied back to Ashwood Pines and its dark history. As we drove away from that vanishing point, the mystery deepened, and we were still entangled in the web of secrets that the forest held. Back in my apartment, the eerie events of Ashwood Pines haunted me. Every time I looked in the mirror, I caught glimpses of the pale girl from the road. Her image would flicker in the reflection, her eyes staring back at me with a haunting intensity. At night, soft cries echoed through the stillness, a chilling reminder of the weeping spirit we'd learned about. Drew, who had been so obsessed with the forest, now seemed to want nothing to do with it or with me. He avoided my calls, leaving me to deal with the aftermath alone. The sense of isolation was suffocating. Meanwhile, Max wasn't faring any better. After our last trip to the woods, he started having vivid dreams of wandering through Ashwood Pines every night. The dreams were so intense that they landed him in the hospital. The doctors couldn't explain it, but I knew it was connected to what we'd experienced. The mystery of Ashwood Pines had seeped into our lives, refusing to let go. The girl, the cries, the dreams, it all pointed to one unsettling truth. We were never alone again. The forest's dark secrets had followed us home, and I feared they would never leave us be. The early morning light filtered through the towering white pines as I, Samantha, a wildlife biologist, trudged deeper into the forest. It was my annual solo trip to study bird migration, but something felt off this time. The usual chorus of bird calls was absent, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to press against my ears. Only the soft rustle of pine needles underfoot and a distant hoarse moan broke the stillness. As I ventured further, I stumbled upon a strange campsite. It was abandoned, yet it looked as if someone had left in a hurry. The tent was torn, flaps flapping gently in the breeze. Curiosity mixed with a creeping sense of dread, I approached cautiously. Right under a massive pine, I found him a man, barely clinging to consciousness. His body, brutal wounds. Deep slashes and stab marks crisscrossed his arms and chest, clearly defensive wounds from a vicious attack. Blood stained the forest floor around him, and his breathing was shallow, labored. My heart raced as I knelt beside him, trying to assess the situation. Who could have done this? What kind of creature roamed these woods to leave such savage marks? The man's eyes flickered open briefly, clouded with pain and fear, before closing again. I knew I had to act fast. Pulling out my satellite phone, I prepared to call for help, but my mind was already racing with questions. What secrets did this forest hold? And what had I unwittingly stumbled into on this quiet, unsettling morning? I dialed the rangers as fast as I could, my fingers trembling from the urgency. They arrived quickly, their faces grim as they assessed the injured man I had found. He was barely responsive, his lips moving in a weak whisper, repeating the word tracker over and over. The rangers, seasoned as they were, dismissed it as traumatic delirium, but something about it didn't sit right with me. As they worked to stabilize him, I stepped aside to review my field notes. Something else was bothering me. The eerie silence of the forest. I flipped through my observations and saw it again. The unusual bird migration patterns I had noted earlier in the week. It was as if the wildlife was deliberately avoiding a certain area. Could it be connected to the man's attack? What could be lurking in the woods that would cause such fear among the birds? And what did tracker mean? The rangers might have shrugged it off, but I felt that there was more to this than met the eye. I needed to find out what was going on in those woods, and why this man had been left in such a state. Leaving the forest behind, I headed to the small town nestled near its edge, determined to uncover more about the man I had found, now identified as Brian, an amateur photographer. My heart pounded with urgency as I moved from one local to another, trying to piece together his story. But the townsfolk were tight-lipped, their eyes shifting away whenever I brought up the forest or Brian. It was as if they were guarding a secret. Frustration gnawed at me until I found myself in the quiet sanctuary of the town library. The librarian, an elderly woman with kind eyes, finally broke the silence. She whispered about the forest being known in old tales as Dead Man's Curve. My breath caught as she continued, revealing legends of forest spirits that supposedly roamed the woods. The pieces of the puzzle started to come together in my mind. Could these spirits be connected to Brian's attack and the strange bird migration patterns I had observed? The librarian's words echoed in my head as I left the library, my resolve hardening. I needed to return to the forest, armed with this new knowledge, and uncover the truth lurking beneath the pines. I went back to the campsite. The air was thick with an unsettling quiet, broken only by the occasional whisper of the wind through the pines. As I approached the site, my heart thumped in my chest, a mix of fear and determination fueling my steps. What I saw sent chills down my spine. Strange claw marks crisscrossed the trees, forming a rough circle around the campsite. The marks were deep, as if made by something or someone with incredible strength. I couldn't help but wonder if these were the same marks that had left those brutal wounds on Brian. Then I heard faint whispers that seemed to come from all around me. My blood ran cold as I realized the whispers were mimicking my voice, repeating my own thoughts back to me. It was disorienting, almost as if the forest itself was playing tricks on my mind. I reached for my camera, wanting to capture evidence of this bizarre phenomenon, but as I tried to turn it on, it sputtered and died in my hands. Frustration bubbled up inside me, but I pushed it down and pulled out my compass, hoping to at least get my bearings. To my dismay, the needle spun wildly, refusing to settle on any direction. Standing there, surrounded by the eerie circle of claw marks and haunted by the whispers that echoed my own voice, I knew I was onto something far beyond the ordinary. The forest was hiding secrets, and I was determined to uncover them, no matter the risk. As I pressed deeper into the forest, the sky darkened, and a storm began to brew overhead. Rain started to fall, turning the ground into a slippery mess, but I couldn't turn back now. My mind was set on uncovering the truth behind the claw marks and the whispers. Suddenly, a rustling in the underbrush caught my attention. I froze, my heart pounding as I peered through the rain. What emerged was not a bear, as I initially feared, but something far more unsettling. It was humanoid, covered in black fur, with long, stretched limbs that made it look like a starving bear. Its eyes, dark and piercing, locked onto mine, sending a shiver down my spine. Then, it began to mimic me. I heard my own voice coming from its mouth, repeating my thoughts and movements. It was eerie, like looking into a distorted mirror, but I couldn't let fear paralyze me. I needed to act, and fast. Drawing on my knowledge of wildlife, I reached into my bag and pulled out some sample jars containing strong scents I had collected for my research. I carefully placed them in a trail leading away from me, hoping the creature's keen sense of smell would draw it away. As the creature followed the scent, I quickly set up a trap using bright lights and noise-making devices I had brought along. The plan was to disorient it long enough for me to escape and gather more information. The moment it stepped into the trap, the lights flared and the noise blared, causing the creature to stagger back, confused and disoriented. I seized the opportunity to slip away, my heart racing with a mix of fear and exhilaration. I had encountered something truly extraordinary, and I was determined to learn more about it. The hunt had begun, and I wasn't about to back down. Weeks have passed since I returned from the forest, and yet it's never far from my thoughts. Sitting in my home office in the city, I jot down every detail of what I saw, heard, and felt during those haunting days. I don't call the creature I encountered as a monster. Instead, I call it the Watcher, a name that feels more fitting for the mysterious being that seemed to observe and mimic me. I poured my experiences into a personal essay, which was published in a wildlife magazine. The reactions were mixed. Some dismissed it as a mere story, while others were intrigued, and a few researchers even reached out, eager to learn more. It was gratifying to see my story sparking curiosity and conversation. Brian, the man I found in the woods, has been recovering well. He reached out to thank me for saving his life, and during our conversation, he mentioned he's delving into the strange symbol he kept mumbling about, tracker. He shared that his grandfather used to tell him stories about forest spirits that remember everything that happens in the forest. It made me wonder if there was a deeper connection between those legends and what I had experienced. One morning, as I was getting ready for the day, I found a small envelope on my doorstep. My heart skipped a beat when I opened it, and discovered my old field notebook, the one I had lost in the woods. Inside was a single note that read, "Thank you for meeting me. Your story matters." A smile spread across my face as I read those words. They felt like a validation of my journey, a reminder that what I had seen and shared was important. I realized then that the Watchers were still out there, but I was no longer afraid. I believe that some things in nature are meant to be seen, not feared, and that by sharing the truth, I could help keep others safe. As I looked out the window at the trees swaying gently in the breeze, I whispered, "I remember." And for the first time in weeks, a sense of peace washed over me. The forest had given me more than just a story. It had given me a new perspective on the mysteries of the natural world.